Hello, I'm Dr. Jason Weibel, and I teach AP Chemistry, AP Computer Science, AP Physics, and Physics here at St. James School. So first, I'll just start with a bit about my background. This is my fourth year teaching here at St. James School. And before that, let me share a screen with you here. So before starting at St. James, I was an assistant professor of chemistry for 7 years at Shenandoah University in Winchester, Virginia. Before that, an assistant professor of chemistry at Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. I did my undergraduate work at North Carolina State University in Raleigh, where I obtained 2 degrees, one in aerospace engineering and then a second degree in chemistry with a minor in physics. After I was done at NC State, I went on to Wake Forest University, where I got a master's in chemistry, where I did a combination of experimental work using a method called photoacoustic dilaser spectroscopy to investigate the OH stressing vibration in ethanol, and computational work to calculate the electronic structure of ethanol while it was undergoing that vibration. After finishing my master's, I went on to Carnegie Mellon University for my PhD in chemistry in an area called theoretical chemical physics. And basically what that means is that I wrote computer programs and developed analytical mathematical models to describe the electronic structure of organic materials. After finishing my PhD, I obtained my first postdoc position at the California Institute of Technology in chemical physics. And the work we did there was we were looking at the kinetics of molecules of atmospheric and cosmochemical interest. So basically, we were looking at the reaction rates and how to mathematically model the reaction rates of chemicals in the atmosphere. When that postdoc was ended, so basically when that appointment ended, my wife still hadn't finished her PhD at Caltech yet, so I got a second PhD at Caltech, second postdoc at Caltech, with an additional appointment at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL. And the project we worked on there was one on what's called the Virtual Planetary Laboratory. And the idea there was to model a planet's atmosphere to help in the characterization and of planets that were discovered outside of our solar system. So basically, how to take the information that the astronomers were getting about these extrasolar planets, and from that try to get some idea of what the atmosphere on those planets was like. When that postdoc ended, that's when I then moved to Nashville and started my position there, then Shenandoah, and then here I am at St. James School. So how did I come to be here at St. James School? Well, when we moved here, when my older son was in 7th grade, we were looking for a school to send him for 8th grade. And we knew St. James School through our church, and so we decided we would arrange for a tour and interview here at St. James. And so we came for the tour and the interview, and after the tour, my son was hooked. He decided that, this was the place he wanted to come. So my wife and I decided that we would try to find a way for him to come. And we did, and he arrived here and started here as a second former. In his 4th form year, he was a day student, and in his 4th form year, we were riding home one day, and he told me that there had been someone by to interview for the head of science position, head of the science department position. Since I knew of the school through Dylan's interaction with it, and I knew the quality of the students, the quality of the education they were getting, the traditions of the school, and the overall atmosphere of the school, I knew this might be someplace that I would like to be. So I contacted the school to apply for the position. They had already given the position to Dr. Bronner, which is a good choice, but they told me that there was also an opening for a physics and chemistry teacher, someone to teach AP Physics and AP Chemistry. And so I applied for that position, and luckily enough, I got that position, and here I am now. So what's some information about the physics class? So this physics class is a sort of algebra trigonometry based physics class. And the idea is we want to give the students a introduction and overview of the principles of physics. So we start with Newtonian mechanics. So basically the discussion of motion of objects. So we start with what's called kinematics, where we just develop equations through experiments and lectures that allow us to describe how a particle moves. We talked about Newton's laws and forces and inertia and action reaction, and we develop an entire picture of how objects move and what causes them to move. This usually takes about half the year. We then move on to things like optics. We talk about light and waves and look at the different properties of light. And if we have time, we then move on to things like electricity. So we look at circuits. Now, in this class, I like to make it as active as we can. So I will often lecture on the introductory background material of a topic, but then we'll do experiments to develop this topic further. For example, we recently took a page from Galileo to enable us to develop one-dimensional kinematic equations. So basically, we rolled a cart down a ramp, marking its position every second. From this position and the time, we were able to determine the average velocity of the cart. From the average velocity, we could then calculate the acceleration that the cart was experiencing. So one thing we found that it experienced a constant acceleration. And then based on that, we were able to determine the equation that tells us, well, the velocity of the cart is equal to its acceleration times the amount of time that it has been moving. And so that's the kind of thing we like to do. We're, to not just, for me, not just a lecture, but to get the students involved. Now this is more difficult this year because we have a combination of boarding students and remote students. But we try to compensate for that by putting the students in groups and allowing them to have more input on the procedure. So basically the idea is that they get in together in groups that are evenly matched between boarding students and remote students, and they have to discuss the pre-lab questions and the procedure that they're going to use to do the experiment. And this is actually, I find that this has actually been working fairly well in the sense that in order to discuss the material, the students actually have to think about it more and articulate what their thoughts better than they did when everyone was here in person. It's more difficult to try to describe what you're thinking to someone remotely than it is to describe it to someone who is sitting right beside you. And so you have to think about the process more, and you have to articulate your thoughts better. And so this is actually enhancing their comprehension of and retention of the material. Now, when we actually have to physically do the experiment, the physical part has to be done here by the students that are here in the classroom. But they do it with the online students observing them, and so the online students are analyzing the data and can help the students who are here in person learn a bit or basically get a better understanding of what they're doing. So rather than just doing it, the online student has the advantage that they can think about what's happening because they don't have to actually physically do it. And so they can think about it more instead of taking that time to make sure the cart's in the right place, make sure the ramp is hooked up properly, make sure that, when I start the cart down the ramp, it's lined up right and I don't knock the ramp over and I get the timer started right. All those things that can distract someone from thinking about the process right then, the online students can do. Now, the boarding students can then talk with the online students and later to get all this together, but everyone has something to contribute to the process. In general, most of our information goes through Microsoft Teams. So their assignments are listed there. The assignments are also listed on Blackboard. So if you'd like to take a look at them there, they are listed there. But when an additional worksheet or something is added to an assignment, or it could be beneficial to an assignment, those are all put up on Teams, and that's also where they will submit their answers. There are two ways in which they can submit their answers. They can either write everything out, type everything out into a Word document and submit the Word document as the answer to their question, or they can write it out by hand and then scan that material into a single PDF document and then submit that PDF document as the answer to their assignment. We in the science department suggest using an app called Genius Scan because it allows you to scan multiple pages and then put them into a single PDF document. But any app that allows you to do that same thing is allowed. And then once it's on Teams and everyone turns in their work electronically, boarding students and remote students, everything gets turned in the same way, in the same format. I then can grade it online and return it to them through Teams as well. Okay, so that just gives you a really quick overview of the class. I know I've taken up quite a bit of your time already. I know you've got other classes that you want to hear about, so I won't take up any more of your time. If you have questions, please feel free to contact me. The best way is probably to use my email address, which is on the syllabus for the class. You should have your children show you that, or it's just jweibel@stjames.edu. So if you have questions, please contact me. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of your time. Bye-bye.